So Dillis just asked me, how does shamanic healing compare or relate to other forms of healing? And I think that's obviously a good question. And the way I'd answer that is that imagine the fabric of your life is a pool of water, a mill pond. Because all forms of healing or help have a theory about, how the world works and how you respond to it. So basically, we have events in our lives, and those events have an impact. So those events are like throwing stones into the pond of water. And every stone that goes in causes a splash and then ripples that go off from that impact. And over time, you get a whole pattern of ripples and splashes, and that is the fabric of your life. And whether you're in a cauldron of huge waves and whirlpools and bubbles, or a very calm, tranquil pond, is shaped by that history of events. So depending on who you are working with, they have a different understanding of how you work with that, with the turbulence. A coaching or a short-term therapy approach says, don't worry about the patterns in the water. Just choose the direction you want to swim in and start swimming. And if we need to, we'll work on your technique. And if you've got fears or phobias, we'll work on those too. A long-term therapy approach says, well, no, we need to study the patterns of the ripples and the patterns and the waves so we can figure out where the really big ones are, and then we'll know what to do with them. A meditation approach says something like, you need to sink below the surface of the waves, get away from the turbulence, get down underneath it all. And shamanism says something actually quite unusual, quite different. First, all of those various efforts are self-effort. They're all variations of, I have to do it myself. Whereas shamanism says, go ask spirit for help. Ask for help from something bigger than you, wiser, smarter. And what happens then is that spirit can take you or go directly to the biggest stone and splash. And not only witness what it was, but change it. So that the ripples that are coming off of it are changed. And from what I've seen, only working with spirit can do that kind of change. Which is, I think, why people get the kind of amazing results they get. And to give you a sense of the layers that a problem can exist on, we'll talk about, I've been having problems with my right knee for the last 3 to 6 months in kind of extreme, but it's been a problem since I was 15 when I first had a sports injury. I hammered it 3 years in a row in sports. So that was the physical origin of this trick knee, which was just there in the background for the years. But in the last year or two, it's become a real problem. It locks up. I have to be on crutches for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm completely immobilized. And they've done an MRI, and there's a half-torn ligament of some sort. So I'm doing physical therapy, which has physically strengthened the knee, and it feels much better. However, I've also worked on it with the shaman that I see. So there is just very literal energy where I'll journey and I see heat and dark colors and things like that leaving the knee. And I can feel it happening in the room. There's the physical therapy level that's taking place. There might be a surgery in the future. But at other times, I'll journey and I will see how this knee attracted injuries in other lifetimes. That I'm pulling out sword blades and musket balls from other lifetimes where, for some reason, it also was attracting insult and injury. And then the most recent revelation was going to a journey where I saw how in my original soul wound for this lifetime was being ambushed and murdered during the Crusades in around 1100. Well, it turns out that the first thing that happened to me in that ambush was they cut my knee in just the way that I couldn't run away. So from a shamanic and spiritual standpoint, that first episode became the seed crystal for all those repetitions. So that's another way of seeing or understanding how different forms of healing interact with each other and how the spiritual is at the core of everything.